Behind the sleek designs and the powerful engines of many of today's most beloved cars lies a darker history. During World War II, many automotive manufacturers were deeply involved in the war effort, producing weapons, tanks, and aircraft. But how did these companies transition from wartime production to peacetime prosperity? Let's dive into the fascinating story of how these companies rebranded themselves and became household names. Born from war, these war machines became dream machines. And one of these is, of course, the automotives from Germany. The most notable, in fact, is the Porsche. Yes, the Porsche 911 you see today, and the cute little Boxster, and the Cayman, and the hairdresser car, actually has a much darker history and lineage behind it, so let's get into it. Porsche was founded by Ferdinand Porsche, of which the company was heavily involved in the Nazi war effort, designing and producing military vehicles, including the Volkswagen Beetle. Now, if you're probably confused, hey, how does Porsche make the Volkswagen Beetle? Doesn't Volkswagen make that? Well, most of the first Beetles by Volkswagen were actually produced in a Porsche factory. They were designed to be the car, the German car. A civilian could use it, a sergeant from the military could use it, an infantry soldier could use it. It was supposed to be accessible to all and customizable. Now enough with the cutesies, let's get into something a little bit more dark. Porsche actually made some of the most advanced weaponry and aircraft for Hitler at the time. Their relationship between Hitler was so good, in fact, that Ferdinand Porsche personally gifted him a car, of which the image I will pull up right now. The main role of Porsche during World War II was supplying tanks, most notably the VK-45.01P and the Elephant gun, which was initially called Ferdinand actually. It was a self-propelled gun. And of course the famous Panzer VIII, which was actually made by Porsche. They also made the V1 flying bomb, which was a very deadly bomb. As you can see, Porsche was very intertwined with Hitler and the Nazi regime. He was a senior member of the Nazi party, and he was an officer of the Schutzstaffel, which is the SS. He was so good, in fact, that he actually received a prize, which was the German National Prize for Art and Science. He also got a medal for the SS Ehrenring and the War Merit Cross. So, coming from all that dark and military background, how did Porsche become what we know of today? Making some of the fastest cars on the Nürburgring like the 911 GT3 RS and the GT2 RS and the 911 Turbo S and so on. The first step to this rebranding was actually the Porsche 356, which was Porsche's first production car, and this laid the foundation for the iconic 911. From there on out, they dominated competition after competition in Formula 1 and the World Endurance Championship, and they further cemented its reputation as a performance brand. The path wasn't easy, however, as Ferdinand Porsche, the guy who invented Porsche, actually got arrested in France for war crimes. Then, his son, Ferry Porsche, took over the company and rebranded it into what we know of today. Post-war Germany was economically devastated and Porsche needed financial stability. So they collaborated with Volkswagen, which Ferdinand had previously designed for. Then Porsche wanted to establish a distinct brand identity, which of course they did with the Porsche 556 and the 550 Spider. And fast forward to today, Porsche is now a symbol of luxury, performance, and innovation. Now, as you saw, I mentioned Volkswagen alongside Porsche, and now let's get into Volkswagen, the German giant.
Volkswagen, das Auto.
And I think you could obviously know what Volkswagen was doing during World War II. So first, let's get into modern Volkswagen and what they are known for today. Volkswagen is a global automotive giant known for its diverse range of cars, from compact hatchbacks like a Golf and Polo to luxury sedans like the Phaeton and the Arteon. They're one of the leading companies in EV sales and also in carbon emissions. Not only that, but a lot of you might know Volkswagen for their extreme power over the car industry. I mean, they own so many car companies. Lamborghini, Audi, Bentley, Porsche, Skoda, and so many more, even some Chinese brands like FAW Motors. However, behind all this pizzazz and all of that stuff, there lies a much darker history similar to that of Porsche's. See, a lot of people don't know, but the Volkswagen was literally founded by the Nazi regime. Yes, you heard that right. Volkswagen was founded by the Nazis. This is a Nazi creation. Volkswagen was tasked with producing the people's car, which I talked about earlier with Porsche, which was the Beetle. During the war, Porsche factories were used to make the military vehicles and components, and also the Beetles, and then later Volkswagen had their own factories, of which they kept making weapons out of them. However, after the war, their Volkswagen factory in Wolfsburg was actually heavily bombed and fell under British control. So this Nazi association actually made rebuilding its image a significant challenge. See, but the British didn't just destroy Volkswagen, they actually aimed to rescue it. So in 1945, they got this guy called Ivan Hurst. And this guy was tasked with reviving the Wolfsburg plant, of which they destroyed. He then decided to resume Beetle production to fulfill an order for the British Army. The decision to focus on the Beetle was pivotal. The Beetle was then reintroduced as a civilian car, of which we know today as the cutesy little car everyone drives around. So although it was a Nazi car used by Nazis, its affordability, simplicity, reliability, and also its cute little design resonated with a lot of people looking for practical transportation. So in the 1950s, they began exporting the Beetle globally, and it became especially popular in the US, where its quirky design and affordability contrasted sharply with the larger American cars. Now, a lot of you might know of the term or of the correlation with hippies and Volkswagen Beetles. Well, this was no coincidence. This was a very smart marketing move by Volkswagen to make the Volkswagen Beetle become actually a more civilian car, a more cutesy car, and get away from its Nazi regime. The Beetle kept evolving, and in the 1960s, Volkswagen's iconic Think Small advertising campaign by Doyle Bain Bernbach was actually released. It was put to action. And this was a really great time for the Volkswagen Beetle. So as the Beetle grew, Volkswagen expanded and made cars like the Golf and the Passat. These things were also very popular. And like mentioned before, then Volkswagen also acquired other brands, including Audi in '64, Seat in '86, and Skoda in '91, expanding its portfolio.
This guy stinks!
Today, they're known for their Golf GTIs, their Passats, and their electric cars, like the ID. It's truly fascinating to see something that people despise, like the Nazis, be associated so heavily with Volkswagen, in fact that they actually founded the company and everyone is okay with it, nobody begs to question it. Whereas if Volkswagen was a company of another thing, they might have went out of business by now. I think we have had enough of the Germans. Let's get into something a little bit Eastern. It's one of its allies actually during World War II, and that is Japan. And the brand we are going to specifically be talking about is Mitsubishi. The brand most known for their Evos and their Lancers and their Pajeros and so on. Mitsubishi's rebranding and evolution after World War II illustrates a strategic shift from wartime manufacturing to becoming a global leader in automobiles, technology, and diversified industries. And here's how they transformed. So during the war, Mitsubishi Heavy Industries was a key supplier for Japan during World War II, producing military equipment including the famous Mitsubishi A6M Zero fighter plane, or simply the Zero. The Zero was one of the deadliest planes in the sky. It was very hard to beat this thing. Mitsubishi can actually be attributed to over 80% of Japan's power at World War II, as most of the machinery and the equipment and the weapons were all from Mitsubishi Heavy Industries. See, the unfortunate thing for them, or the fortunate thing for the general public, was their defeat during World War II, and then they surrendered. So Mitsubishi was dismantled into smaller companies under Allied orders during the occupation as part of efforts to break up industrial conglomerates associated with militarism. However, this game was a challenge because their ties to Japan's military was very strong, and it would be very tough for them in the post-war era, in the post-bomb Japan. By 1954, some of Mitsubishi's companies began reuniting, with Mitsubishi Heavy Industries becoming one of Japan's largest manufacturers again. And finally, the company shifted to civilian industries, including automobiles, electronics, shipbuilding, and power systems, helping rebuild Japan's post-war economy. They kept building, and by 1970, Mitsubishi Motors was produced. And their first car, which was the Colt 600, which was a compact and affordable, reliable vehicle, was made. Mitsubishi saw the success with the Mitsubishi 500 and the Mitsubishi Colt 600 in Japan and decided to expand their markets, and they began exporting cars in the 60s and 70s with models like the Mitsubishi Galant and the Mitsubishi Lancer. They became very popular quickly because of their durability and their performance. If you've watched my 7 car brands that failed video, I was talking about Chrysler and how Chrysler would actually make a joint venture with Mitsubishi. And essentially, Mitsubishi used Chrysler as a sort of marketing vessel, selling its vehicles under the Dodge and Plymouth brands before establishing its own presence. They saw success with the performance path they were taking and they decided to go all in. And in the 80s and 90s, they've established themselves as one of the best rally car companies in the world. Specifically, then the Lancer and Evolution, which became legendary, cementing Mitsubishi's reputation among car enthusiasts worldwide. The 80s and 90s, then, was a very successful time for Mitsubishi, and they sold many copies, especially this very successful Lancer. Beyond automobiles, however, Mitsubishi remained a leader in many industries like shipbuilding, aerospace, energy, playing a vital role in Japan's modernization. And of course, US had a hand in this. They knew that Japan had a lot of natural resources, and they knew that the Japanese people were working very hard, so they took that to their advantage. And essentially, they acquired Mitsubishi as a first step into putting Japan in their pocket. However, as of today, Mitsubishi isn't really doing so well, with sales declining ever since 2010. But it's interesting to see how a company started out from purely a war machine to making Evos that people downpiped and put huge turbos on it. For the next entry, I guess you could call it greener grass. We are going to be talking about Ford, the legacy of reinvention. Ford is one of the few on the list which purely started out as a motor company. During World War II, however, Ford Motor Company shifted gears, becoming a cornerstone of the Allied war effort. Its assembly lines, once dedicated to cars like the Ford Model T and the Ford Thunderbird, now produced military vehicles, B-24 Liberator bombers, and other wartime essentials for the US Army. See, Ford's contribution was pivotal, but when the war ended in 1945, the company faced a different kind of challenge, transitioning back to peacetime production in a world of rapid change. Ford quickly returned to what it did best, building cars, and by 1948, they built one of their most successful models yet, the F-Series, which is a rugged and reliable truck that will go on to become the best-selling vehicle in history, the F-150. Their cars were practical, durable, and built for America's working class. The F-Series captured the spirit of a nation rebuilding itself. Boys, the rebranding starting with this one, as in 1964, they finally introduced the Ford Mustang, the crowd killer. Mustang was a pivotal point in Ford's rebranding, and this is finally when people started to see Ford as more than just people who made trucks. Whatever Ford had in their mind, the people saw it too. They saw the vision, they saw the legacy. Things didn't go as smooth, however, because of the 1970s oil crisis and stricter regulations. Let's get to the final entry in the list, and that is some Italian manufacturers, and I want to start first by the most prominent one, which is Fiat. Fiat was also mainly an automotive company. However, during World War II, they shifted its focus to producing military vehicles for the Axis powers. And of course, we all know how World War II ended, and by 1945, its factories were left in ruins. The problem is with Fiat that they had two things to rebuild, and that was themselves and the nation of Italy itself, as they faced a huge economical downfall. Fiat's answer to the post-war hardship came in 1957 with the launch of the Fiat 500, effectively known as the Cinquecento. I probably butchered that word, I am sorry. It was affordable, compact, practical, became a symbol of Italy's economic recovery. The comeback was so great, however, that it actually became a global brand. By the 1960s, it was exporting cars to every corner of the world, solidifying its place as a leader in affordable mass-market vehicles. Their strategy of building factories abroad helped it reach emerging markets, spreading its influence far beyond Italy. Fiat is not doing so well. However, they aren't doing so well as a brand, as they did also own the Chrysler and the Plymouth Group. That was where most of their success came. Now let's get to another Italian manufacturer, and that's Alfa Romeo. Alfa Romeo was known for luxury and speed, and they were dominating European motorsport left and right. This car was the king of the road back then. However, during World War II, it started producing engines and equipment for the Italian military. Planes, weapons, bombers, you name it, whatever the Italian military needed, they made it. Just like Fiat, by 1945, it was basically in ruins. Not only that, their country, Italy, was also in ruins. They began their rebirth around the same time as Fiat in 1950 with the launch of the Alfa Romeo 1900. It was its first mass-produced car. It was stylish, fast, practical, and what marked the brand's return to form. Their racing spirit remained alive, cementing its reputation as the car of choice for those who valued passion and performance. Throughout the 60s and 70s, Alfa expanded its reach, captivating drivers around the world with the iconic models like the Giulia, Sprint, and the Spider. God damn it, I am so bad at pronouncing names. And by the way, the Spider actually famously starred in The Graduate. Alfa Romeo faced financial struggles in the 1980s, but eventually becoming part of the Fiat group, it kind of recuperated their losses. They didn't really put much into rebranding and kept selling their supercars and cars like the Giulia. Giulia, I don't even know, correct me in the comments. And that's about it for the list. It's crazy to think that some of the cars we drive today have some of the darkest history behind them. From cars that literally started out as solely weapons manufacturers like Porsche and Volkswagen, to now solely being automotive manufacturers. And nobody seems to talk about it. Nobody seems to drive a Volkswagen and think, oh, the founders of this company were Nazis. Nobody thinks that. But if it was another company, I think people would surely think of that. This just goes to show how these automotive companies rebranded themselves so well. Well, guys, that's about it. And before you click away from this video, I want to tell you that this is about my 5th or 6th video. And I would really appreciate it if you could leave me some criticism, some feedback in the comments telling me on what to improve. And if you like the video, you can feel free to leave a like and subscribe.